In the name of the Father, and the Son, the Holy Spirit, one God, Amen. In the month of Hatur, we read the parable of the sower and the seed twice this week and next week. And this parable is according to Jesus, actually. He's the one, the teacher, who said, I have parables of different difficulties. So the easiest of them, and he's going to talk about it at the end, the easiest parable that Jesus said is the sower and the seed. It's very direct connection. What's the most difficult parable? And everybody has a problem with it.
Unjust.
The unjust steward. The easiest parable is the sower and the seed. He said that. He said to the disciples, you don't understand this parable. How would you understand the rest of them? Implying that it is the simplest of all of the parables he said. And why would Jesus speak in parables? He speaks in parables to not just to teach us like a teacher in a classroom, but to make us connect. If you talk to farmers and they are sowing, it's a time of seeding. In Egypt right now, it's a time of seeding. You connect with the parable because you live it. It's something that's very relatable. And for us, it gives us an insight into Jesus' mind, how he thinks. So I've looked into the parable, read a lot of things about it, heard a lot of sermons about it, and today I want to give a different perspective, if possible, to add one more point of view. I'm going to look at the parable of the sower and the seed as a speech or a parable about boundaries. About boundaries. Let's say the parable again. So the parable says a sower, a man, a farmer, in the time or season of sowing, putting seed in the ground, he took a bag, you can imagine, he didn't say that Jesus, took a bag of seed, that's how farmers do, took a bag of seed on his shoulder, and the old times they didn't have machinery to spread the seed. It is the easiest job. You just grab a bunch of seed in your hand, and then you throw them like this, a bunch of, you throw them like this, a bunch, and throw them like this. It was not a precise operation. There's no line where when your hand is like I'm doing the water in the liturgy after this, the water goes everywhere. So there's no really certain precision in it. So apparently he has to go to the field, and if you've been to a farming or a agricultural community, and you want to go to the fields where they sow things and we cultivate things, you're gonna have to go from the road to the ditch to the good ground. From the road to the ditch to the good ground. What do you see in this? Why we have ditches? So that the rainwater can actually drain in them. And nobody cares about ditches. Nobody, you don't do anything with the ditches. It's just meant to, it's a little groove in the ground that collects water. So you go from the road, and how is the road done? You get dirt and sometimes rocks, and you, in the old times, now we have compactors. You go and then just compact the ground so that they are very solid. But in the old times, you put the dirt and the rock and spread them and go on them with carts, wheels, with animals. Go back and forth 3 times, it will be very solid. In the ditch is actually left. Nobody cares for it. And what happens in the ditch? You have water. By the way, the ditch have a little bit of rock too, because the road is built. You cannot really just cut the road like that. It goes with the rocks coming down. Rocks, and then this place where there's a lot of water. So what would you have when there's water? What do you have in your front yard when you have water? After a while, weed. Absolutely. And then the place where the farmer pays the most attention is the field, the one that he wants to keep it clean. And what does he do for that? I lived in Iowa for 3 years. It's a farming community, huge farming community. I think the area of Iowa is a little bigger than Egypt. So it's really big place, but it's all corn as far as you can see, and it's flat, except except Twister Hill, that's in near Iowa City. So it's a flat land with so people actually take their kids from school. They would have like six, seven kids, and they would take them from school to do what? And I've never heard this before. It's I heard it only in Iowa. Walk beans. What do you mean by walking beans? So we go and collect rocks. That's walking beans about. To go and just collect rocks that it was unearthed from the rain and the multiple seasons of cultivation. So they go this one day. They go and they before they put the seed, they have to collect the rocks. So why do you need to collect the rocks? Because they're not supposed to be in the field. Field cannot. If you're going to cultivate some corn and you need it to really produce the best corn, then you have to clean the ground. This is the place where there's most of the attention. Actually, all the attention is given. So you're talking about a ground that's very solid. That's the road. A ground that is some solid, some dirt, and then a ground where the bottom of the ditch where there's a lot of water and a lot of weed, and then you come to this clean place where it's nice and there's nothing there. It's pure dirt, if I can say so. And this is the place where you expect most of the produce, the fruit. So this farmer in Jesus' parable was throwing, and some of his seed, because he cannot control it, fell on the road. He went through too strong, and he did this close to the border of the field, and it crossed over, went to the road, I can imagine. And then some of it went on the side of the road, which is rocky, and then another one came into the bottom of the ditch where is the weed, and then the rest of the most of it, I hope, fell on the field. That's how the parable gives us an idea, and then the farmers understand that. They understand. They have already calculated for the amount that will fall outside. This is about boundaries. This is about boundaries because you will never, as a farmer, allow rocks to be in the field, nor thorns. You will do everything you can to keep them outside. And this is a principle that a Jew would definitely much more understand than us. I think this is what we lack as Christians. We take it easy and we cross boundaries a lot and we blur boundaries a lot. To them, I'm sure you're going to say, okay, we criticize them for being so strict. And and Jesus even criticized them, at least the Pharisees. He said, you sift the gnat, but you swallow a camel. You seem on the surface that you're actually keeping boundaries very clear, but actually inside of you, there is no boundaries. What is he saying? It was good that you kept the boundaries on the outside. You needed also to keep the boundaries inside. So what do I mean by that? Let's go and talk about boundaries. The Jews understood, the teachers of the Jews understood that when God created the world in chapter 1, he acted like a priest. Listen, this is very important. The job of the priest is to teach the people what's holy, belongs to God, and what is common, that does not belong to God, and set very hard boundaries between the two. So when God said, let there be light, and light came, and then God saw that the light was good, and what does it say? And God separated the light from the darkness. And they say, aha, God is acting like a Cohen. He is a priest here. He's making boundaries. Night has to start at certain time, end at certain time, and it's not allowed to cross over to the day. He's setting boundaries as a creator. He set also boundaries for the clouds from the sea when he created the firmament, and he said to separate. And then the third boundary, he said, let the water stop and let the land appear so that the water does not cover the whole earth. He put boundaries to the sea. We have this very clear in the Psalms. But whatever natural processes God worked, he kept the sea at bay. And the flood was to bring this boundary down and then just let the water cover again. So you understand, from creation, God is interested in boundaries. To be a God of order, he's a God of boundaries. So when he go into the the Exodus, you see that God actually had surrounded his people. There's boundaries. When he takes them to the mountain, the holy mountain, and they're gonna see God and speak to him, God told Moses, put boundaries. The word was actually written literally, boundaries are on the mountain. So they don't cross from their camping area. They are my people and I love them, but don't let them die. They need to stay in their boundaries. And I, when the mountain, I will be behind those boundaries. There's boundaries everywhere. And when Jesus saw that the boundaries were broken in the temple, he was angry. He was very angry. Because let me ask you this, is trading, selling, and buying bad, evil? Who said that? Is selling and buying evil? No, it's not evil. You go to the marketplace and buy your groceries, your clothes. But what was evil about that that made Jesus angry? That they crossed the boundaries of the temple. The temple was meant for prayer, and they blurred the boundaries so that the prayer place and the marketplace became one. This is Old Testament, New Testament. We're very uneducated about that. Let us talk about types of boundaries. First type of boundaries is boundary of space. I hope that none of us, don't laugh, will do what they do in the bathroom in their dining room. I hope we don't do what we do in the bathroom in the dining room, because that has a boundary and that has a boundary. I hope you don't bring anybody into your bedroom, because that's a boundary too. So every one of those spaces that you created in your home has a certain function, and we don't blur them. We don't really kind of, and this is when problems happen. Once you blur the boundaries, you're going to run into very difficult problems. Boundaries of space, boundaries of time. No one is allowed to play games the whole day at work, or to do his, I'm hoping this is what happened actually sometimes in Egypt, I've seen it. A woman brings her cooking material to work and sits there and cook at her office, at her work. That's a blurring of boundaries, and this is very destructive. I mean, there's nothing wrong about cooking. We all need food, but it cannot be done in the workplace. So the boundaries of time, we actually have to have boundaries of time. For example, and this is important actually, the first job of a abbot or a spiritual father in a monastery is to establish a routine of prayer that is not broken, and they have to be very strict about it. There's a time for God, they box it, and they say, this time is holy, I'm going to give it to God, and I cannot do anything in it. That's it. It's out of bound for anything else, whether it is work or leisure or entertainment or even socialization or friends or anything else. I'm not going to negotiate that. So there's a morning time for God, there's a night time for God, there's a one day, early morning, Sunday or Saturday, that's going to be for God. I cannot give it to anything else. That's called boundaries too. Once we blur those boundaries, we lose. That God is not going to lose anything. We lose. What happens? We lose our peace. We lose our joy. We lose ourselves. We lose our freedom. To be away from God is to be a slave, basically. So if you want your freedom to continue to be with you, and I hope nobody is deluded that they think they can be okay without being committed to God, we're going to lose big time. So those holy times, the boundaries, and this is important, your field is clear, so that you're going to have fruits. If your field is not clear, the whatever you're bringing in is going to choke. Boundaries of time, boundaries of thought and feeling. So sometimes we allow thoughts that is very harmful to come inside here, and I need to keep them out. Sometimes we have feelings that doesn't belong. For example, a man and woman at the ceremony of marriage, they bind themselves with oaths, with promises that cannot be broken, and it carries a blessing and a curse. Say, I will never have emotions for any other woman in the world but you. And she will say, I will have no other man in my heart other than you. And then once we get a feeling or a thought of someone else, we have already broken the boundaries. I have broken the boundaries within me. That's even more harmful and more hurtful than physical and time boundaries being broken. It's very important that we watch our borders, our limits. We watch for it. There are things that we know is wrong. Wrong not because of it's principally, intrinsically wrong, but wrong because we're mixing things together. And those mixing, although it seems like there's nothing wrong with it as on the outside, but actually when you look at it carefully, it actually doesn't belong. It does not belong. And we have to be careful. To be in a place or a situation with a person that is iffy, that's not kosher. Not, I can't really say 100% it's okay, but there's nothing wrong. You cannot catch me do anything wrong. But I've been in that situation, which is a gray area. No, absolutely not. St. Paul will tell you that what is not of faith is a sin. What do I mean by what's not in faith, St. Paul? What do you mean? He said faith here is 100% assured. If I'm not 100% assured it is right, then it is by default, it is wrong. For example, sometimes in the old times, not now, thank God we are moving away from that. That was the pressure of the world on us, which is good. That's a good pressure. People smoke and they come to Abuna. When I was ordained first in the monastery, someone would come to me and say, is smoking wrong, Abuna? You know what my answer would be? Why are you asking? Why are you asking me? If you were sure it's right, you wouldn't need to ask me. If you're not sure it's right, then it is wrong. So I think sometimes we need to kind of keep a vigilant eye over what we bring into our bodies, what we bring into our mind, what we bring into our heart feelings. And we have ability, well, as long as we're with God, we have the ability to fight it out. You have the ability to stand and firm and say, you don't come in here. This is my holy of holies. This is my bedroom. I can't let you in. Then everything will be upside down. I will lose big time. This is my time with God. I don't want anything to come. Even my closest, most intimate friend, if it is your time that you have allocated to God as holy time, if it is the place that you think of as the holy place, don't bring anything that doesn't belong there. Otherwise, everything in your life will be upside down. It is the beginning of the ruin. It's like the flood. When the water came back on the earth and then covered the earth, everything died. I think I had this story from my youth, and I want to finish with it, where I have a friend who was a very godly friend. I learned a lot from him. And he would take time during the time between the lectures in medical school, and we would have very little time to go or grab a sandwich or whatever. And he would take it to sit aside in a corner by himself. Nobody finds him, and he prays. And one time I asked him, "Why don't you come and join us? This is very important." Nobody comes in there, and nothing comes in there, and I'm going to keep it that way. I can tell it's actually bringing fruits in his life, and I see it. I see a lot of peace and joy and virtues. A godly person, but he had kept this. I don't know where he gone. I'm sure he became a monk or something, but he kept that even in the world. He's not. He didn't need to go out in the desert, but he kept those boxes where he had the special, very special places and times where he kept as holy of holies. Glory be to the Father and to the Son and the Holy Spirit, now and forever.